30 million souls. One vast, sun-drenched continent. Yet, on the maps drawn by the architects of the old world, a shadow is missing. A heartbeat is muffled. People are invisible. This is Australia, a land of staggering beauty and brutal history, where the horizon stretches forever, but the space for the melanated soul has often been measured in inches. We are told this is a Western paradise, a glittering crown of the Commonwealth, a tropical London where the sun never sets on prosperity. But look closer. Beneath the shimmer of the Sydney Opera House and the turquoise waves of Bondi, there is a question that haunts the wind. A question asked by every traveler who carries the dust of the motherland on their boots. Where are the black people? The raw fact is staggering. Out of 30 million inhabitants, the presence of those with the skin of the earth is a whisper in a heavy gale. Official records might speak of 500,000 Africans, but when you peel back the layers, you find the echoes of white South African migration, leaving the true children of the diaspora, the melanated sons and daughters of Ghana, Zimbabwe, and the Caribbean, as a tiny fractured unit. They are the invisible ones. They are the students who walk into a classroom and realize, with a sinking heart, that they are the only mirror for their own image. They are the professionals who find success but lose their song. If this resonates with your sense of justice, do not leave. Like this video, comment your thoughts, and subscribe, not for us, but to keep the flame of dignity burning. For decades, this land operated under a shadow known as the White Australia policy, a cold, calculated effort to ensure the demographic landscape remained as pale as the English cliffs. It was a chain forged not of iron, but of law. And though those laws have crumbled, the scars remain in the architecture of the society. The diaspora here does not just live. They navigate a silent war of belonging. They are the others in a land that was never theirs, yet a land built upon the very principles of exclusion. But then, the pivot occurs. You leave the tourist traps. You turn your back on the postcards of the harbor, and you head west. You travel past the manicured lawns and the glass towers until the air changes. You reach the suburbs, Auburn, Parramatta, Blacktown. This is where the map begins to bleed color. This is where the silent ones find their voice. This is where global African sovereignty is not just a political theory, but a survival tactic. Can a seed from the red earth of the Sahel truly bloom in the salt air of the Pacific? Can the spirit of Africa rising survive in a place that once swore it would never let it in? We went looking for a community, and what we found was a phantasm of the motherland, a resilient, defiant heartbeat pulsing in the western suburbs of Sydney. We met men like Bishop, who arrived as a 10-year-old boy from Ghana, a young captain of his school, a star of the football pitch, only to find himself a ghost in a new land. He spoke of a dream, a literal dream that visited him every single night for 2 years. In this dream, he was back in Ghana. He was under the African sun. He was surrounded by the rhythm of the drum and the laughter of his kin. But every morning he woke up to the cold reality of an Australian suburb where no children played in the streets and no one looked like him. It is a specific kind of grief, the grief of the uprooted. It is the price paid for the desirable life promised by the West. Yet, Bishop did not break. He is the embodiment of the resistance we see across the globe. He carried the torch of his identity through the corridors of schools where he was the only black face. He learned to use the weapon of wit, turning the taunts of the ignorant into bridges of understanding. "You have a fat nose," they would say. "All the better to smell you from a mile away," he would reply. This is the calloused hand of the diaspora, hardened by experience, yet gentle enough to build a future. As we walked through Auburn, the atmosphere shifted. This wasn't the Australia you see on the news. This was something different. It felt like a hinge in history was turning. We saw the gold shops of the Arabic merchants, shimmering like the treasures of Timbuktu. We saw the high streets where the language of the colonizer was being reshaped by the accents of the migrant. We began to see that the African Diaspora Australia is not a monolith. It is a tapestry of survival. We were led toward a North African restaurant, a place where the scent of spices promised a temporary return to the soil. But as we approached the door, something caught our eye. Something that didn't fit the narrative of a quiet, assimilated minority. It was a flash of pride, a sudden surge of energy in the middle of a mundane afternoon. The journey from the sterile corridors of the inner city to the vibrant pulse of the suburbs is more than a commute. It is a pilgrimage toward the self. We arrived in Auburn, a place where the air vibrates with a different frequency. Here, the The High Street is not just a commercial strip, it is a defiant declaration of existence. In the West, we are often taught that the High Street is the domain of the corporate giant, the Walmarts and the faceless conglomerates. But in Auburn, the High Street is the village square. It is where the scent of roasting lamb mingles with the sharp, sweet notes of Arabic coffee, and where the rhythmic chatter of many tongues creates a shield against the silence of assimilation. We are looking at a community of 260,000 black souls in a nation of 30 million. Mathematically, they are a drop in the ocean, but spiritually, they are the salt that gives the ocean its power. This is the African Diaspora Australia, a collective of sun seekers and survivors. Some, like Darren, chose to follow the sun from the gray skies of London, seeking a tropical refuge where the light matches the fire in their veins. Others were carried here by the winds of displacement, refugees of wars they did not start, looking for a patch of earth where they could finally bury their grief and plant their hope. Before we reveal the next chapter, which is perhaps the most powerful assertion of sovereignty you will ever hear, I want to pause and speak directly to you. If this channel has moved you, if these stories are touching something deep in your spirit, then consider becoming a member, not for exclusive content or perks, but because supporting this channel is directly supporting narratives that mainstream media refuses to tell. Every membership is a vote for the Sahel Doctrine's mission. Every member becomes a co-creator of the revolution we are documenting. Join us. Stand with the principle that African wealth belongs to Africa. This is the crossroads where the global movement for global African sovereignty meets the local reality of a Sydney sidewalk. In the Sahel, leaders like Ibrahim Traore remind us that a nation that cannot feed itself or name itself is not truly free. That same spirit of self-reliance is what you feel in the shops of Auburn. You see it in the jewelry stores, where pure gold is crafted into the intricate symbols of forgotten empires. You see it in the restaurants where the portions are large because generosity is a prerequisite for dignity. These are not merely businesses, they are outposts of independence. The locals here understand a truth that many in the West have forgotten, that culture is the ultimate economy. When the drum sounds for a festival, or when the community gathers for Ramadan, they are not just celebrating, they are circulating wealth. They are investing in each other. They are proving that the black dollar, when kept within the circle of the diaspora, has the power to build walls that no policy can tear down. As one resident put it, if you are about the economy, then you have to love the migrant. It is a cold, hard fact wrapped in a warm, cultural embrace. But there is a shadow that follows this prosperity. To build a life here, you must often trade a piece of your past. Bishop, who we met earlier, spoke of the immense power he wielded as a school captain in Ghana. He was a leader, a star, a voice of authority. In Australia, he had to learn to be a migrant. He had to watch his father, a man of stature, be teased because his English didn't fit the local cadence. He had to endure the slow, painful process of being remeasured by a society that did not know how to count his worth. This is the hidden cost of the tropical London dream. It is the silent war between the man you were and the citizen they want you to be. It is the struggle to keep the bitter roots of your history alive while trying to flower in a foreign soil. And nowhere is this struggle more evident than in the items they choose to sell in their shops. We saw the yams, huge, earth-covered tubers that look like stones but hold the lifeblood of a continent. To the uninitiated, they are just food. To the diaspora, the yam is an anchor. It is a piece of the red earth of the motherland, transported across 10,000 miles of ocean to remind people that they are still connected to the source. As we moved from the bustling markets of Auburn toward the cultural heart of Parramatta, the conversation shifted from the stomach to the mind. We were told of a place, a sanctuary, where the stories that the world tried to bury were being kept under lock and key but open to all who dared to read. We were headed toward the African Library, a place that promised to bridge the gap between the struggle of the past and the sovereignty of the future. But as we stood before the entrance, a question arose. In a world that is increasingly burning the books of our ancestors, what happens to those who choose to write their own? The journey deeper into the heart of the western suburbs leads us to a place that mainstream travel guides rarely mention. We are in Parramatta, but we are not here for the heritage sites of the colonizer. We are here at number 8 Victoria Road, the African Library and Cultural Center. If the markets of Auburn are the stomach of the diaspora, This room is its mind. It is a fortress built not of stone and mortar, but of paper, ink, and memory. Inside these walls, the air is thick with the scent of old pages and the heavy weight of untold black narratives. It is a sanctuary where the flame of dignity is shielded from the winds of erasure. For our brothers and sisters watching from Atlanta, Chicago, or Detroit, you know the sting of the vanishing shelf. You have seen the headlines where the history of your ancestors is being quietly removed from the curriculum, labeled as divisive or unnecessary. But here, in a small corner of Sydney, the response to that silence is a roar of literacy. On these shelves, Black history is not a footnote, it is the foundation. You find the records of the great Mansa Musa, the wealthiest man to ever walk the earth, a king who turned the sand of the Sahel into gold and wisdom. You find the story of Queen Nanny of the Maroons, a warrior who broke the chains of the British Empire in the mountains of Jamaica. Before we reveal the next chapter, which is perhaps the most powerful assertion of sovereignty you will ever hear, I want to pause and speak directly to you. If this channel has moved you, if these stories are touching something deep in your spirit, then consider becoming a member, not for exclusive content or perks, but because supporting this channel is directly supporting narratives that mainstream media refuses to tell. Every membership is a vote for the Sahel Doctrine's mission. Every member becomes a co-creator of the revolution we are documenting. Join us. Stand with the principle that African wealth belongs to Africa. This library is the physical manifestation of global African sovereignty. It operates on a simple, devastatingly powerful principle, that true independence begins between the ears. In the Sahel, Ibrahim Traore speaks of the silent war for the soul of the nation, a war fought against the mental chains of the past. He understands that a man who does not know his own history is a man who can be easily led. The volunteers in this library, like Kharija from Mali and Bishop from Ghana, are the young captains of this intellectual front. They are not waiting for a government grant or a nod of approval from the establishment. They are reclaiming the torch. This is the lived reality of African Diaspora Australia. It is a community that understands that when you are small in number, your culture must be your fortress. We witnessed a moment that shattered every stereotype of racial isolation. A white Australian woman, a foster mother, sat quietly while a young woman from West Africa taught her how to braid hair. This was not a mere fashion lesson. The mother knew that the young girl in her care, a daughter of Ghana, needed more than just a home. She needed her roots. She needed the calloused hands of her community to guide her back to herself. This is the awakening in its purest form, where the struggle for justice becomes a shared burden of love. The books here are the seeds of a future harvest. They cover the walls like protective armor. Stories of the Haitian Revolution, the first successful uprising of enslaved people in the New World. Biographies of African writers who were never taught in Western universities. And linguistics texts that preserve the Shona and Ndebele languages of Zimbabwe. It is a reminder that the river of our history flows through every continent. Whether you are standing on the red earth of Burkina Faso or the dusty roads of Western Sydney, the connection is unbroken. But as we looked closer at the shelves, past the icons of the past, we found something that felt like a warning and a promise all at once. Tucked between the histories of the motherland was a book about the Caribbean, a bridge between the original departure and the current arrival. It spoke of a presence that predated the colonizer, a presence that the world is only just beginning to acknowledge. What if the map we have been following is a lie? What if the invisible frontier has been hiding a secret that could reshape how we see the entire world? We reached for a book about the home of the revolution, Haiti. And as the spine cracked open, the room seemed to grow colder, and the stakes of our journey suddenly became much, much higher. The weight of the transition is not measured in miles, but in the silence that follows the arrival. To understand the African Diaspora Australia, you must look into the eyes of a man like Bishop. In Ghana, he was a captain, a title that carries the resonance of leadership, the power of a voice that commands attention on the football pitch and in the classroom. He was a rising star in a nation that knew his name, but when he stepped off that plane into the sterile sunlight of Sydney, the title vanished. He was no longer a captain. He was a statistic. He was a 10-year-old boy in a world that saw his skin but could not read his soul. For 2 long years, the only place he felt truly alive was in the theater of his mind, where every night he dreamt of being back home, running through the dust of his village, surrounded by the rhythm of the drum and the warmth of a community that never asked him to explain his presence. This is the silent war of the diaspora, the psychological price of seeking a new frontier. It is a cost often hidden behind the success stories and the glittering high streets. In the Sahel, Ibrahim Traore speaks of the need for internal revolution, a reclamation of the African mind from the scars of the colonial era. That same revolution is fought daily in the hearts of those living in Blacktown and Parramatta. They are fighting the erosion of the self. They are fighting a system that offers them a desirable life while quietly asking them to leave their heritage at the border. It is a struggle for global African sovereignty played out in the quiet corners of a library or the back rooms of a barber shop. They refuse to be just migrants. They choose to be custodians. Take a second right here to tell us where you are watching from. Type the name of your city, your land, the soil beneath your feet. And as you do, know this. The Sahel Doctrine sends you not just thanks, but a blessing. For strength in your hands, for pride in your heart, for light on the road ahead. The comments below become a map of connection, showing that this message reaches far beyond borders. The resilience of this community is rooted in the very earth itself. We see it in the marketplaces where they sell the yam, that rugged, earth-stained tuber that serves as a literal and metaphorical anchor to the motherland. To the outsider, it is merely food. To the diaspora, it is a covenant. It is the refusal to let the palate be colonized. When a Jamaican woman like Anna, who spent years in the oppressive, sauna-like heat of the Northern Territory, finally finds a place in Sydney where she can buy her goat meat and her plantain, she is not just shopping. She is performing an act of resistance. She is asserting that her culture is not a souvenir to be tucked away, but a living, breathing part of the Australian landscape. Anna's journey from the UK to the Australian outback and finally to the Black Street of the West is a testament to the tenacity of the African diaspora. She, like many others, was recruited for her skills, brought in to fill the gaps in a Western system, yet she found her true purpose in building a Jamaican food empire. She wears many hats, social worker by day, cultural chef by night, because the diaspora knows that survival requires versatility. They have learned to navigate a society that is racist in a different way than the UK or the US. It is a society that sees them as others, but through that otherness they have found a unique kind of freedom. They have built their own networks, their own Black Wall Streets, where the currency is trust and the language is shared experience. But the most profound price is paid by the youth, the ones born in the shadow of the Pacific, who have never tasted the dust of the Sahel or felt the humidity of the Caribbean. For them, the African Library is not just a building, it is a lifeline. It is where Dr. Steingosi Dubé, a linguistics lecturer, works tirelessly to make the African community visible through the power of language. She knows that when a child loses their mother tongue, they lose a piece of their shield. Without the language of their ancestors, they are vulnerable to the narratives written by those who do not love them. This is the ultimate front of the Black history struggle, ensuring that the next generation does not just survive in Australia, but thrives as part of a global sovereign people. As we watch the elders sitting together in the town square, politicking and solving the world's problems just as they would in a village in Ghana or Zimbabwe, we realize that the invisible frontier is becoming visible. The silence is being broken. But as the sun began to set over Blacktown, casting long shadows across the train station where the youth gather after school, we were reminded that every awakening is met with a challenge. A new wave of migration is coming, and with it, a new set of questions. We were about to leave when we heard a story, a whisper of a new movement, a collective of voices that refused to be silenced any longer. It was a story that would link the struggle in the Sahel directly to the streets of Sydney, proving once and for all that the distance between us is an illusion. The steam rises from the small ceramic cup, carrying the ancient scent of the Ethiopian highlands into the heart of a Sydney afternoon. This is not just coffee. It is a ritual of return. In this tiny shop in Blacktown, the air is thick with the fragrance of roasted beans and the heavy, sweet incense that has floated through the air of Addis Ababa for 3,000 years, Ethiopia. The cradle of humanity, the only African nation never to be colonized, gives us this gift. As the dark liquid is poured in a steady, graceful stream, you realize that you are tasting more than a beverage. You are tasting the very essence of independence. You are tasting a history that refused to be tamed. This is global African sovereignty in its most intimate domestic form. It is the sovereignty of the kitchen, the sovereignty of the hearth. In the Sahel, The young captain Ibrahim Traore speaks of a continent that must feed its own soul before it can lead the world. He calls for a rejection of the imported, the artificial, and the borrowed. Here, 10,000 miles away, the African Diaspora Australia answers that call every time they choose the traditional over the convenient. Every time they grind their own spices, every time they boil the earth-stained yam, every time they sit for an hour to share a cup of coffee, they are reclaiming a piece of the red earth. They are proving that the frontier of our culture is not a line on a map, but a state of mind. We saw it in the eyes of the youth at the train station, young men and women who carry the swagger of Sydney but the heartbeat of the motherland. They are a new breed. They are the sons and daughters of the struggle, the heirs to the untold black narratives we found in the library at Parramatta. They are no longer content to be the invisible ones. They are stepping into the light, bringing with them the stories of Queen Nanny, the wealth of Mansa Musa, and the unyielding spirit of the Haitian revolutionaries. They are the living proof that the chain has been broken, not just legally, but spiritually. The resilience we witnessed in these western suburbs is a mirror to the resistance we see in the Sahel. It is the same fire. It is the fire of a people who have been told for centuries that they are less than, yet who continue to rise like the sun over the savannah. From the social workers like Anna, who turned the heat of the outback into the success of a Jamaican empire, to the lecturers like Dr. Steingozi, who fight for the visibility of our languages, the message is clear. We are here, we are many, and we are whole. As we prepare to end, remember, this is not the end of the road, but a seed planted in the soil of your heart. Every story of dignity, every voice of sovereignty, is part of a harvest that lies ahead. If you want to see that harvest grow, subscribe to this channel, the Sahel Doctrine. Let this be the road we walk together, the light we carry forward. Your subscription is not for us alone. It is for the promise of what is still to come. Join us, and be ready for the next chapter that is already waiting to be written. This journey through the streets of Sydney has revealed a truth that the world is only beginning to grasp. The story of Africa is no longer confined to the borders of a single continent. It is a global chorus. It is a symphony of voices rising from the streets of London, the favelas of Brazil, the cities of America, and the suburbs of Australia. We are witnessing the dawn of Africa rising on a planetary scale. It is a movement that transcends the white Australia policies of the past and the neo-colonial chains of the present. The African Diaspora Australia is a vital, beating heart in this global body. They are the bridge builders. They are the ones who remind us that whether we are walking on the dust roads of Burkina Faso or the high streets of Blacktown, we are walking on the same ground. We are bound by the same ancestors, driven by the same hunger for justice, and lit by the same flame of hope. This is the ultimate expression of global African sovereignty, the realization that our power is not something to be granted by others, but something to be claimed by ourselves. As the sun sets over the Pacific, casting a golden light over this invisible frontier, we do not feel the weight of the silent war. We feel the warmth of the rising sun. We see people who have moved from anger to pride, from regret to unshakable hope. The drum is sounding, the yams are in the earth, and the coffee is pouring. The story is not over. It is only just beginning. And in this new chapter, we are the authors, we are the captains, and we are finally, gloriously visible.